blood on the porch, a disabled security camera, and a pacemaker that suddenly went dark in the middle of the night. These are the haunting clues left behind when 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie vanished without a trace from her Tucson, Arizona home on January 31st, 2026. And here's what makes this case even more shocking. Nancy is the mother of NBC Today Show anchor Savannah Guthrie, one of America's most recognizable faces. But fame couldn't protect this family from a nightmare that has gripped the nation for the past 7 days. And why does every new piece of evidence make this case stranger and more terrifying? I'm bringing you the latest updates in a case that has law enforcement baffled and a family desperately searching for answers. This is Strange Chapter. Let's start at the beginning, because the timeline of Nancy Guthrie's disappearance reads like something out of a horror film. And the most chilling part, someone may have been watching her every move. Nancy Guthrie is 84 years old. She's described by her family as a vibrant, independent woman who lived alone in a quiet Tucson neighborhood. Her daughter, Savannah Guthrie, lives in New York with her husband and children, but the two spoke nearly every single day. Nancy had health issues, nothing unusual for someone her age. She had a pacemaker to monitor her heart, and she took daily medications to manage various conditions. But she was mobile, she was sharp, and she was living her life on her own terms. On the evening of January 31st, 2026, Nancy had dinner with family members. Her son-in-law, Savannah's husband, Michael Feldman, was in Tucson on business. He picked Nancy up earlier that evening, and they had dinner together at a local restaurant. By all accounts, it was a normal, pleasant evening. Nancy was in good spirits. She talked about plans for the upcoming week. There was absolutely nothing to suggest what was about to happen. At approximately 9:50 that night, Michael dropped Nancy off at her home. He walked her to the door. He waited until she was safely inside. He saw her lock the door behind her. Then he drove away. That was the last confirmed sighting of Nancy Guthrie. The next morning, February 1st, Nancy missed a scheduled phone call with Savannah. Now, this might not seem unusual to some people. Maybe she slept in. Maybe she forgot. But Savannah knew her mother. Nancy never missed their morning calls. Never. When Savannah couldn't reach her mother by phone, she immediately called a neighbor and asked them to check on Nancy. The neighbor arrived at Nancy's home around 10:30 in the morning. The front door was locked. The neighbor knocked. No answer. She peered through the windows. Nothing seemed disturbed inside. But then she noticed something that made her blood run cold. There was blood on the front porch. Not a lot of blood, but enough. A few drops near the doorway and what appeared to be a small smear on the porch railing. The neighbor immediately called 911 within minutes. Tucson police arrived at the scene. They entered the home with consent from the family. Inside, everything appeared normal at first glance. Nancy's purse was on the kitchen counter. Her phone was plugged in and charging in the bedroom. Her medications were in the bathroom cabinet. Her car was in the garage. There were no signs of a struggle inside the house. No broken furniture, no overturned lamps, nothing that would indicate violence had occurred indoors. But Nancy was gone. Police immediately began processing the scene as a potential crime scene. That blood on the porch, they collected samples for testing. It would later be confirmed to be Nancy's blood. Not a large amount, consistent with a minor injury or perhaps a small laceration, but blood nonetheless. And the question became, how did Nancy's blood end up on her porch when she was last seen safely entering her home the night before? Then investigators made another discovery, one that would deepen the mystery even further. Nancy had a Ring doorbell camera installed at her front door. It's the kind of security device millions of Americans have. It records video whenever motion is detected. It should have captured everything that happened on that porch, but the camera had been disabled. According to the system logs, Nancy's Ring doorbell camera stopped recording at 1:45 in the morning on February 1st. Someone or something had disabled it. And here's what makes this so disturbing. The camera was disabled from the inside using the Ring app on a mobile device. This wasn't a case of someone cutting wires or spray painting the lens. Someone with access to Nancy's account had deliberately turned off the recording function in the middle of the night. Could Nancy have done this herself? But why would an 84-year-old woman disable her own security camera at 1:45 in the morning? And if she did, what happened next? The mystery deepened even further when investigators examined Nancy's medical records. Remember, Nancy had a pacemaker. Modern pacemakers are sophisticated devices that can transmit data to monitoring centers. They track heart rate, rhythm, activity levels. Doctors can see if a patient is moving around normally, if there are any cardiac events, if something is wrong. Nancy's pacemaker stopped transmitting data at 2:30 in the morning on February 1st. Think about that for a moment. At 9:50 p.m., Nancy is safely inside her home. At 1:45 am, her security camera is disabled. 45 minutes later, at 2:30 am, her pacemaker goes silent. And by 10:30 the next morning, she's gone, and there's blood on her porch. What happened during those hours of darkness? The Tucson Police Department immediately launched a massive investigation. They interviewed neighbors. They pulled footage from every security camera on the block. They searched Nancy's home top to bottom, looking for any clue about what might have happened. And they discovered something else that troubled them deeply. Nancy's phone showed unusual activity. In the hours before she disappeared, there were several deleted text messages. Investigators were able to recover some of them, but not all. The messages that were recovered didn't reveal much, just routine conversations with family and friends. But why were messages deleted, and who deleted them? Police also found that Nancy's front door had been unlocked when the neighbor and officers arrived. Remember, Michael Feldman saw Nancy lock the door when he dropped her off at 9:50 p.m. So at some point between then and 10:30, the next morning, that door was unlocked again. Did Nancy unlock it to let someone in? Did someone have a key? Or did something else happen? Savannah Guthrie was on the air that morning when she got the call about her mother. She immediately left New York and flew to Tucson. By that afternoon, she was on the ground, working with police, organizing searches, and pleading for information. And the pain on her face was visible to everyone who saw her. She stood beside Tucson Police Chief Chad Kazmar and spoke from the heart. Her mother was missing. Her mother needed daily medication. Her mother had health conditions that required monitoring. Time was not on their side. Every hour that passed made it less likely Nancy would be found safe. Savannah also addressed something that would become a major concern in this case: the possibility of scams and deepfakes. In our modern digital age, criminals have been known to use a technology to create fake videos and fake audio recordings. Savannah warned the public that if anyone received a ransom demand or saw a video claiming to be from Nancy, they should immediately contact the FII. She begged people not to send money to anyone claiming to hold her mother. She emphasized that the family would work only through law enforcement. This warning would prove to be tragically prescient. The search for Nancy Guthrie became one of the largest missing persons operations Tucson had seen in years. Volunteers combed the desert surrounding her neighborhood. Search and rescue teams with cadaver dogs swept through nearby parks and washes. Drones with thermal imaging cameras flew grid patterns over the area. The FI joined the investigation, bringing additional resources and expertise. Tips poured in from across the country. Dozens of reported sightings, most of which turned out to be cases of mistaken identity. Nancy is a white woman, approximately 5 feet 4 inches tall, with short gray hair. In other words, she looks like thousands of other women her age. Every lead had to be checked, but none of them panned out. Days passed. February 2nd became February 3rd, then February 4th, still no sign of Nancy. Celebrities and politicians shared Nancy's picture, asking their followers to help find her. But behind the scenes, investigators were working a much darker angle. That blood on the porch, combined with the disabled camera and the silent baker, pointed toward foul play. The Tucson Police Department officially classified Nancy's home as a crime scene. They brought in forensic specialists to process every inch of the property. They analyzed blood spatter patterns. They collected fingerprints. They searched for any trace evidence that might reveal what happened. And then, on February 6th, 6 days after Nancy disappeared, something happened that changed everything. The family received a message, according to sources close to the investigation. Someone claiming to have information about Nancy's whereabouts contacted the family through an encrypted messaging app. The details of that message have not been made public, but multiple news outlets have reported that it may have included a ransom demand. Some reports suggest the demand was for payment in Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency that's nearly impossible to trace. The FBI immediately took over the communication. This is standard protocol in potential kidnapping cases, especially when ransom demands are involved. Special agents trained in hostage negotiation began analyzing the message, trying to determine if it was legitimate or a cruel hoax. They examined the language, the timing, the method of contact. They were to trace the digital footprint of whoever sent it. But here's the problem. In 2026, it's easier than ever for criminals to create convincing fake messages. AI technology can generate realistic text, realistic voices, even realistic videos. The FI has seen a surge in what they call virtual kidnapping scams, where criminals convince families that a loved one has been taken even when no actual kidnapping has occurred. In some cases, scammers use AI to clone a person's voice from social media videos, then call family members claiming to be the victim asking for help. Is that what's happening here? Or is this a real kidnapping with Nancy Guthrie being held somewhere against her will? The FBI isn't saying. They've asked the public not to speculate. They've warned that sharing unverified information could jeopardize the investigation and potentially endanger Nancy if she is being held captive. But of course, that hasn't stopped intense speculation online and in the media. Let's talk about the theories, because there are several, and each one is more unsettling than the last. Theory number 1. Nancy was abducted by someone who knew her routine. Think about the facts. Someone disabled her security camera using the app, which suggests they either had access to her phone or her account credentials. The pacemaker went silent, which could mean it was deliberately disabled or damaged, or that Nancy suffered a medical emergency. The blood on the porch suggests some kind of injury or struggle. And there's been no trace of Nancy in 7 days despite massive search efforts. This theory suggests a carefully planned kidnapping, possibly by someone with insider knowledge of Nancy's life, her schedule, her security systems. Theory number 2. This is connected to Savannah Guthrie's fame and wealth. Savannah is a high-profile television personality married to a political consultant. The family has money, they have connections, they're in the public eye. Targeting Nancy could be a way for criminals to extort the family while avoiding the security that would protect Savannah or her immediate family. Elderly parents of celebrities are often seen as softer targets. They may not have bodyguards, they may not have sophisticated security, and criminals may calculate that a famous daughter would pay anything to get her mother back safely. Theory number 3. Nancy left on her own. This is the theory some online commenters have suggested, though it seems unlikely given the evidence. Could an 84-year-old woman with health issues have staged her own disappearance? Could she have had reasons to leave her life behind that the family doesn't know about? The problem with this theory is that it doesn't explain the blood, the disabled camera, or the silent pacemaker. And it doesn't account for the fact that Nancy left behind her medications, her phone, and her car. If you're planning to disappear, you take those things with you. Theory number 4. Something happened medically, and Nancy wandered away in a state of confusion. This is another theory investigators have considered. Could Nancy have suffered a stroke, a cardiac event, or some other medical emergency that left her disoriented? Could she have injured herself, which would explain the blood, and then wandered out of her home in confusion? The problem here is that the pacemaker data should have shown a cardiac event if one occurred, and the disabled camera still doesn't fit this scenario. Plus, someone in that state typically doesn't make it far. Search teams with dogs should have found her by now if she was somewhere in the surrounding area. Theory number 5. This is an inside job. This is the darkest theory, and I hesitate to even mention it. But it's one that law enforcement always considers in cases like this. Could someone close to Nancy be involved? Could someone with access to her home, her accounts, her routine have played a role in her disappearance? Police have not named any suspects or persons of interest, and there's no public evidence pointing to anyone in Nancy's inner circle. But statistically, when someone goes missing under suspicious circumstances, people close to the victim are always investigated first. So what do we actually know as of February 7th, 2026? We know Nancy Guthrie has been missing for 7 days. We know there was blood on her porch. We know her security camera was disabled in the middle of the night. We know her pacemaker stopped transmitting data at 2:30 in the morning. We know the family received a message on February 6th that the FBI is investigating. And we know that despite massive search efforts, despite national media attention, despite the involvement of local police and federal agents, there has been no confirmed sighting of Nancy since her son-in-law dropped her off at 9:50 p.m. on January 31st. The FI has released a statement saying they are pursuing multiple investigative leads. They've asked anyone with information to call their tip line. They've warned the public to be cautious about scams and fake messages related to the case, and they've assured the family they are doing everything in their power to bring Nancy home. But with each passing day, the chances of a positive outcome diminish. Nancy needs her medications. She has health issues that require monitoring and care. If she's being held somewhere against her will, the conditions of her captivity could be life-threatening. If she's injured or ill and unable to seek help, time is running out. Savannah Guthrie has remained in Tucson, away from her job and her family in New York. She's been holding daily briefings with investigators. She's been coordinating search efforts with volunteers. And she's been living every parent's worst nightmare, except in reverse, as a daughter who can't find her mother. In her most recent public statement, Savannah's voice cracked with emotion as she begged anyone with information to come forward. She said she just wants her mother home. She said her family is cooperating fully with law enforcement, and she said they won't stop searching until Nancy is found. The Tucson community has rallied around the family. Local businesses have posted flyers with Nancy's picture. Churches have held prayer vigils. Volunteers continue to search. The case has touched something deep in the public consciousness. Perhaps because Nancy represents so many people's mothers and grandmothers. She was living independently, enjoying her later years, staying connected with her family. And then, in one night, she was just gone. As we record this on February 7th, 2026, the investigation is active and ongoing. New information could emerge at any moment. The message received on February 6th could lead to a breakthrough, or it could turn out to be a cruel hoax. Search teams could find evidence that cracks the case wide open. Or this could become one of those agonizing missing persons cases that drags on for weeks, months, or even years without resolution. What really happened to Nancy Guthrie? Was she abducted by someone who targeted her specifically because of her famous daughter? Was this a random crime of opportunity that went horribly wrong? Did someone she knew betray her trust in the worst possible way? Or is there some explanation we haven't even considered yet? Some piece of the puzzle that will only make sense when more evidence comes to light? The blood on the porch suggests violence or injury. The disabled camera suggests premeditation. The silent pacemaker suggests something catastrophic happened to Nancy's physical state. and the message to the family suggests someone knows what happened and may be trying to profit from a family's anguish. If you're watching this and you have any information about Nancy Guthrie's disappearance, please contact the FI immediately. Don't assume someone else has already reported what you know. Don't dismiss a detail as too small to matter. In cases like this, the smallest piece of information can be the key that unlocks everything. To Savannah and her family, if you're watching, our hearts are with you. The Strange Chapter community is pulling for Nancy's safe return. We're keeping her story alive. We're making sure people don't forget. And we're hoping for a miracle. To everyone else watching, this case reminds us how quickly everything can change. Nancy Guthrie was safe in her home one moment and gone the next. It reminds us to check on our loved ones, to take security seriously, to trust our instincts when something feels wrong, and to remember that behind every true crime story is a real family going through unimaginable pain. What do you think happened to Nancy Guthrie? Do you believe this was a targeted abduction connected to Savannah's fame? Do you think the message the family received is legitimate or a scam? Do you have a theory we haven't covered? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and please be respectful. This is an active case with a real family desperately searching for answers. If you found this video informative, please hit that like button. Share it with others who might have information or who want to help spread awareness. And subscribe to Strange Chapter for updates on this case and other true crime mysteries that demand our attention. We'll be following the Nancy Guthrie disappearance closely and bringing you new information as soon as it becomes available. This is a case that has captured national attention for good reason. It has every element of a mystery that keeps us up at night. A vulnerable victim, a bizarre set of clues, a famous family, and more questions than answers. Somewhere out there, someone knows what happened to Nancy Guthrie during those dark early morning hours of February 1st. Someone knows why there was blood on that porch. Someone knows who disabled that camera. Someone knows where Nancy is right now. Until that person comes forward or investigators crack this case, we're left with a chilling question. What really happened to Nancy Guthrie? Thanks for watching Strange Chapter. Stay safe out there, and remember, the truth is always stranger than fiction.